Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when and where you are. It's good to see you. Well, obviously, I can't see you, but you can see me. Um, Welcome to another session of Festival in a Box 2.0. I'm delighted to say that we have with us Troels Knudsen from Stauning Distillery in Denmark. I'm going to bring him in just now, and he is going to take us through the Stauning Rye that you have in your pack. So if you don't already have it, grab it and open it and get a glass ready. And here's Troels.
Hi,
Troels, good day to you, sir. How are you doing?
good day. I'm doing very well. I'm looking forward to this. Um, it was fun last year. I hope it can be the same this year.
Well, it's just me and you. It's just me and you this time, but I feel that we've more than enough fun to go round.
Well, I definitely have enough in my bottle to go around for a few people, so hopefully other people do too.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, Trolls, obviously I know you from previous experience, but maybe one or two people haven't come across you before. So maybe you can just tell the viewers at home who you are and what you do and how you got to be doing what you do.
So my name is Troels, and I'm the UK brand ambassador for Stauning. I've been holding this job for just about 2 years. Prior to that, I've worked in hospitality for basically all my life since I was 18. So I have about 25 years, give or take, experience in restaurants and fine dining and high-end cocktail bars. I've also helped out in a couple of distilleries in London from time to time, um, bottling, labeling gin, and helping with developing new recipes for gin. And yeah, that's how I ended up being approached by Stauning. They were hoping to find a Dane in London who knew his whiskey and liked whiskey and would help them spread the joy of Stauning.
So they were lucky to find you, and you were lucky to find them, right?
Exactly. We both have massive trait in common, which is our curiosity. So that's something that really appealed to me. Like because the guys who founded Stauning, they they don't come from the whiskey world, so they're not tied into the norms and what's expected to do. So there's a lot of freedom that comes with that when you don't have the knowledge from being brought up in the whiskey world, so to speak. So there's a lot more freedom to play around with cask and doing stuff that others necessarily haven't done before. Maybe others have done before and failed, but we don't know. It's part of our journey to try and fail as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's all part of the rich tapestry. Um, Good. So I think probably the viewers like to get on with the drinking or the tasting side of things. So
Yeah,
should we start with that? I've pre-poured mine.
I've poured a little bit as well.
You poured yourself a little bit. So why don't you tell us a bit about the Stauning Rye and what it
So
is?
this is our rye, which was released in October of 2019. There was slight delays leading up for various reasons. Sorry, 2020. Um, it's a blend of rye barrels that's been aged for 3 to 4 years. It's heavy char New American oak, and the mash bill consists of 70% floor malted rye and 30% floor malted barley. All of the floor malting is done in house. We have two malting lanes that can hold approximately 50 metric tons each at any given time. Um, Apart from barrels, everything that goes into our bottles is locally sourced. Nothing is further away from the distillery than 40 kilometers. A couple of the guys who we get grain from actually went to school with a couple of the founders. So they personally bring the grain. We use the grain, and once we've used it, we store it, and they come and collect it again and feed it to their livestock. So there's a nice full circle of the local environment going on with everything we do.
Very, very cool. I think it's nice to hear of distilleries that use extremely local ingredients.
Well, the local butcher was doing sausages that were branded as Stauning sausages because it was from our mash tuns. It was the leftover. It was the spent grain that was fed to the pigs, and then the pigs were turned into sausages.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were very popular, apparently. I certainly never got my hands on them over here.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Be interested to taste them. Good stuff. And now, so what? I mean, a lot of people, certainly in the UK, where this festival in the box is really aimed at, won't have tasted a great deal of rye whiskey, excepting maybe from the USA. So, what would you say are the differences between the rye produced in Denmark at Stauning compared to, in Kentucky?
Yes. So the main reason between our rye from Stauning and American rye is the lack of corn in our mash bill. Most rye in America will have some element of corn that gives some sweetness. So minimum 51% rye, and then mainly corn and a bit of barley in most American rye recipes. Ours is solely rye and barley. Obviously, rye being a big part of Danish food culture, the whole of Scandinavia for that matter, and also the northern parts of Germany with the dark, dense rye bread. So that's essentially what this is based on in liquid form. So yeah, that's the main difference, is the absence of corn. I have prodded at my bosses to see if we could try and do a bourbon mash bill. Yet to no avail. We have incredible corn in the area as well, so maybe one day we'll see. But for now, we're sticking to the rye.
Well, it certainly doesn't suffer from the lack of corn, does it?
No, I think one of the main things that really appeals to me is that more dry and spice forward style. And some would think that this is quite young for a rye, but because of that huge chunk of barley to sit alongside it, there's a beautiful balance, and it really adds some body to an otherwise young rye.
It's funny. I think a lot of people would associate rye whiskey with things like Manhattans and old fashions. How do you find Stauning works in those kinds of cocktails?
It works incredibly well. I've also just been working on some summer serves for Stauning that would be nice and easy for people to replicate if they buy a bottle and they're on the way to the summer house, a barbecue or a picnic. So essentially utilizing things that they would already have bought for the kids. So I've done a drink which is very simple, just a lemon zest with some raspberry lemonade, and then 35 ml of the Stauning Rye, and it's absolutely incredible. It's so simple and so easy.
Sounds very refreshing.
Yeah, and the 35 ml makes a light drink, so you can have a couple, and also you know that there's 20 serves in the bottle at 35 ml.
Yeah. I think what I like about it is the fact that, for me, a lot of USA ryes are quite aggressive, and you can see why old fashions and Manhattans were quickly rolled out.
Yes,
because it needed to be kind of tempered and not watered down, but you know what I mean. Just
have the edge polished off.
Exactly. So, but whereas certainly with the ryes I've tasted from you guys, I'm quite happy sipping them away, and finding very interesting flavors. I mean, I think a lot of people will taste it and think, wow, is that whiskey? And the fact is, yes, it is whiskey. It's just a different style altogether, using different raw ingredient.
It's incredibly well balanced, and as one of my friends was saying, it's truly remarkable that in such a short space of time, 15 years essentially, that we have the clearly defined lineup that we have with the rye, the chaos, and the smoke as a core range. Like, I can't think of any other distillery that has had such a clearly defined range in such a short space of time.
Yes, exactly. So listen, while we're enjoying the rye, Troels, would you mind giving us a little bit of background about the distillery in terms of, who came up with the idea and when it was opened, that kind of thing?
Yes, so the story started back in 2005. One of the founders was on his way to his summer house and to meet his parents there. And he was driving through a barley field, and he was listening to a program on the radio about Scotch whiskey. And he was looking out the window and thinking, we have such great quality grains here. Surely we should be able to make great whiskey. So a week later, he met with 13 of his friends and asked, who's up for a little journey and who wants to try and make some whiskey and have some fun? And 8 of the friends said, that sounds like fun. And first place that they had to distill was the abattoir of the local butcher. So one of the founders is the son of the butcher, and he's also a butcher, and his father was building a new abattoir. So he gave them the old abattoir to play around in. So they bought random parts online to build 2 stills, one 215 liters and one 230 liters. And then they started playing around. And the first thing they did was barley. They wanted to recreate a 1970s art bag, but it soon got very apparent to them that that wasn't going to happen anytime soon, but also there was no point in replicating a Scotch if they could make something that was truly unique to their local environment. So that's been kind of like the cornerstone since then, to try and make something that's truly unique to the area and to the surroundings. So the first release was in 2008, about 2 weeks behind another Danish distillery in doing the first Danish whiskey release. So they just about beat us to the punch. Obviously, McMurray and Sweden are a bit further ahead of us, but I think by now we, along with McMurray, are probably the 2 most prominent distilleries in Scandinavia.
Yeah. I mean, they've done an amazing job over at McMurray, haven't they?
Yeah.
And again, they're very keen to extol the virtues of using local product and local wood and so on, which I think for me is very important when you're producing whiskey in perhaps what you might call non-traditional whiskey producing regions, is to bring that element of locality, regionality, so that it speaks of where it comes from, rather than just being a Scotch want to be or something like that.
Yes, exactly. That's the one issue that we do have, is that there's not really much wood to use from the local area. So hence the only part that's not local. And also with the heavy char with New American oak, it does allow us to release whiskies that are slightly younger.
Yeah, well, I think I would think most distilleries, especially those in Scotland, very rarely would use oak local to them. That's one thing that's shared really around the world, is the use of and well-known use of American oak and European.
That high content of vanillin that lends itself so good to a whiskey profile.
Yes. Great stuff. So, I mean, apart from the rye itself, which is obviously quite a different raw ingredient to barley in terms of, particularly in terms of how difficult it is to handle and process, what other quirks or differences are there in the production process at Stauning that you know of that make it stand out?
Well, basically, there is actually how we handle the rye. It is one of the things. 2 of the founders having had talks with guys from Johnny Walker in the south of France at an event, sat in the back of the car, and during a 16-hour car journey driving back, they designed a new thing to separate the grain from the wash, and it's sort of a cross between the spinner in your washing machine and equipment that they use in mink farming to spin the animal to get the skin out or off the animal. And they've kind of done a hybrid of that, and we get a much bigger yield that way. And people come from different distilleries and go, "What's that?" And we explain it, and they go, "Where did you get that?" It's like, "Oh, we designed it. The guy down the road built it for us." And they're like, "What?" And they're like, people haven't seen it anywhere else. So some of those things are I think, is what set us apart. And especially having 3 engineers or 3 of the founders, they're always looking for ways to improve things. So like in the still hall, all the walls are absorbing noise and heat. So you can actually stand when all the stills are on and have a normal conversation and hear each other perfectly across the still room floor, which is quite unique in any distillery. They tend to make a lot of noise, especially when they're direct fired as ours are.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I imagine this device to help you with the processing of rye is it a jealously guarded secret, or have you shared it with any other rye distillers?
I don't actually know if they've given away. They're happy to show it to people when they're there. So I guess once you've seen it in action, you can get a rough idea of how it works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they've patented it.
Right. It sounds pretty game changing for you guys in terms of processing rye. I mean, I'm not sure if everyone at home is aware, but processing rye versus malt whiskey is just a completely different kettle of fish.
You get a big sticky lump of grain that you need to wring out, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Another thing actually is on our malting floor, we have we built a machine for the original distillery, which would turn the grain. Mm-hmm. And then when we built the new distillery, we built a bigger version of that. And one of our guys, Alex, had been at a convention in America, and they talked about enzyme development in floor malting and how when nature does the enzyme reaction itself, then it's wind and rain that turns the grain and gets the enzyme process going. But in most distilleries where you turn the grain, you're only about 60 to 70% of nature's ability, because you're only turning it. And one of the guys was like, "Well, let's just make it rain in the distillery then." They built an irrigation system into this thing that turns the grain. So now it rains on a timer while it turns the grain. So we've managed to get up to about 95% of the enzyme development of nature, which is quite extraordinary, which means, again, we get better ferments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Really fascinating stuff, Troels. Now, tell me and tell the viewers at home, I mean, obviously, with Stauning still being a relatively young distillery, there must be further plans and, exciting things to come in the future. So are there any plans for expansion or changing in what's been done, or new bottlings?
Well, for now, it's a case of filling up the warehouses. We built a 4th one, and a 5th one, I believe, is underway as well. But during the lockdowns across the world, then there's been a huge demand from people at home buying whiskies. So we've had to manage our stock. So for the time being, there's nothing new planned. So we've just released El Clasico, which is this one, which is absolutely incredible. So it's the same as the rye whiskey, but after 3 years, it's been taken out of the New American oak and transferred into a Spanish vermouth cask. Hence the name El Clásico. That is the first written reference to the Manhattan cocktail in Spanish writing. So that's the latest in our research series. What's coming next? I'm not entirely sure, but if it's anything as good as that, I'll want some of it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to try that. Have you tried that in a Manhattan or something?
I've just been drinking it as it is. It's so. Actually, I did make one drink when my friends were here as a welcome drink. You know the small Italian bitter bottles you can get, the non-alcoholic spritzes, so to speak, like 100 ml bottles.
Mm-hmm.
2 parts of that to 1 part of that is absolutely incredible. It's like a whiskey laced Americano.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever shared a dram or a cocktail or anything, Troels, and I'm starting to think that it could be a very messy session.
Nah, you just need to make sure you eat and drink lots of water.
I wasn't necessarily worried for me, to be honest.
Ooh, fight talk.
Yeah. No, it would be fun anyway.
Yeah, it would indeed. Well, we'll have to make amends for that at some point.
We will. Well, light is at the end of the tunnel, Troels, and
it is. I've got my 2 vaccinations, so I'm all good to go.
Good.
I just need everybody else to catch up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not far behind. I think I've got my 2nd in a couple of weeks. Anyway, so last question for you, sir, is more to do with the world of whiskey making and what's going on outside of Stauning and so on, and really just to see what your opinion is on the current state of the world whiskey market and industry. And is there anything that you're very excited about or even concerned about?
Well, I think the concern will always be that people buying whiskies and not drinking it, and thus making it difficult for people who actually want to taste whiskies to get hold of whiskey, and prices reaching stupid amounts, and you're forced to search for treasured bottles on auctions and stuff. That's a trend I really don't like. There's other things where it's more positive. Like, I think there's a lot of the new distilleries that pops up that's similar to Stauning, that they don't feel the need to follow conventional rules and have the ability to play around and experience new things. So I think that's really interesting. Like, there's a Danish distillery that I really want to try the whiskey from. So his mother used to smoke cheese curds that she was making with nettles. So because of that, he uses nettles to smoke his whiskey. And I find that really fascinating. I really want to try that.
Yeah, that does sound fascinating, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I must admit, it's those kinds of things where you have people with a clear passion for what they do and doing things quite differently.
Yeah.
But staying true to themselves and their region.
Yes.
Very interesting about the bottle flipping. I think you're referring to, where people
exactly
are buying bottles to sell them immediately to make a short-term gain. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's totally anti whiskey. I think it really. The whiskey industry is such a wonderful place to work, with the most wonderful people and places, and obviously the whiskies themselves. And it seems a shame that one or two, obviously more than 1 or 2 people feel the need to exploit it like that.
Well, there's measures to be taken. I really admire how, when Winkle, for instance, has said in the UK, you can buy our products at cost at retail from these outlets, but they will remove the foil before you take it home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that ensures that it's actually people who want to drink it.
Yeah,
get their hands on it.
Yeah, I know there's lots of measures that particularly the smaller producers are putting into place to try to combat the flipping side of things. Hopefully, it's something that will disappear eventually, but I have my fears that it might be here for a long time.
Well, people are always looking to make a buck, aren't they?
Well, this is it. Anyway, Troels, it's been an absolute pleasure.
To my luck, though, it forces people to look elsewhere for more obtainable bottles, which helps small producers like us at Stauning.
Yeah, exactly. Until people, everyone discovers Stauning and then enough.
Hopefully by then we'll have enough warehouse space.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep up production.
Indeed. Anyway, listen, Troels, I think I've kept you long enough. It's been delightful to catch up again. Sorry it's been so long.
That's okay, Eddie. I've enjoyed this as well.
Yes, it's been great fun. I've really enjoyed the ride.
The festival in person.
Yes, well, we will make that happen sooner rather than later. So
I hope so.
I'm sure everyone watching at home, once it's safe to do so, will be looking forward to getting back together and sharing drams with lots of people. So I will say to you, what's the Danish for slanger, by the way?
Skål.
Skål.
Yes.
Very good. Actually, I was just doing a recording with the Highland Park, and it's the same, obviously, because of the Viking origins.
Yes.
So, Troels, I will say skål.
Skål.
And see you very soon. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone at home for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.
Go and do another session. Thank you, Troels. Goodbye.
You're welcome. Bye.